Well, this is a video that some of you I know have been waiting for. And the reason I know that is because in my list of videos that should be done, that from your suggestions, by the way, keep them coming. I'm totally loving that. I have three big ones that comes down to women in the Bible, and specifically the Marys. And so I'm going to try to tackle all three of these questions at once. So let me just jump over here, open up these questions, and see where we want to start, because I've got a whole bunch of them here. It seems like certain religious beliefs are meant to control others. I'm curious what your thoughts were on women in the Bible. From what I understand, a lot of information about the spirituality of women was removed from the writings. Is this true? Yes. There you go. There's your answer. Moving on. No, I'm kidding. The time of Jeshua was a very patriarchal time. Men ruled the roost, and women were subservient in a very big way. That was not Jeshua. And that is a very controversial thing to say for a lot of historians, because for spirituality and for religions, they believe that absolutely they have no problem with Jesus loving everyone and treating everyone equally. They have no problem with that. Historians have a big problem with that. During the time of Jeshua, many things were written, many things were documented. You have to remember that most of the things that are documented came originally from oral tradition and then became written like very much later. So it was handed down through oral tradition first. But in the Dead Sea Scrolls, they found the Book of Mary. They found several books and several references to women. And the Dead Sea Scrolls were found in Qumran, which was the Essene encampment, and it's pretty known that there was a woman there named Ruth who was spectacular and was the leader of the compound. But there was a lot of teachers that were involved. Now, when I'm looking at your question here, 60 books were removed at the Nicene Council. We have no idea what all the books were. We know that there's bits and pieces of books, so we don't know 100% everything. But we know that there were books by women, and we know that not a lot. But like I said, the Book of Mary was in there, and we know that a lot of the spirituality that was taught after Jeshua was taught by women to women, sort of underground, because women were kind of thought of as, men went and hung out in the temple and teached and talked while the women handled the house. But women carried a lot of that to other women, and then to all of us as well. Now, and let me I'll back into my memories of some things, because I think you're going to find it interesting. Let's shift from that to another question about women in the Bible. Was Jesus married? I don't know about Jesus, but Jeshua was married. He was married to Mary of Magdala, de Magdala, right? Of Magdala, Mary Magdalene. And Mary Magdalene was actually, very interestingly enough, the daughter of a very wealthy man, very wealthy family, well-to-do family. She was not a prostitute, and the prostitution of her came when they tried to make the patriarchal changes to the books, and they made her the prostitute who was being stoned. The prostitute who's being stoned was nameless. Even in the Bible, there's no name given there. It never says it was Mary Magdalene in the Bible. It says there was a prostitute. So Um, what's interesting about that statement is yes, they're married. Here's where it gets. My memories might make some people unhappy. I never saw her pregnant or with child. Everyone asks me that, after Dan Brown's book and the Masonic, conspiracies, and everyone asks me if there's a bloodline. And let me share a little bit about Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene. So, at the crucifixion, I was there. I was the only one of the 12 core group that was at the crucifixion. The rest of them were hiding in the hills because they knew that they were going to be hunted down. But I was there because Mary was there, Mary Mother, and I was going to take care of her. And that's why in the Bible you see Joshua say, "Son, there is your mother, mother, there is your son." And I took her into my house for the rest of my life. Now, understand, when I say my house, it's not like I had a house, right? Right? My house meaning my household, meaning my family household. We actually left Jerusalem and went to my original family household and lived out away from the cities because it was much more dangerous to live near Jerusalem. And Mary Magdalene came and lived with us for a while. And after the crucifixion, because it was safer for her, because that was his wife. So I had his wife and his mother spirited away from Jerusalem, and they lived with me for quite some time until eventually Mary Magdalene moved back to Magdala, moved back to her family. And I don't remember her ever being pregnant. I don't remember her ever having a child, giving birth. I never saw Jesus with children or Joshua with children. I never saw that. I don't think, in all honesty, with everything that we were doing, it would have been very difficult for him to have children for all the traveling and working we did. Not that she couldn't have gotten pregnant, but I think that would have slowed us down quite a lot, and it did not. So let me see what else I got here. Now they asked about lost writings. A lot of the writings of, like, the Nag Hammadi library, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and a lot of those things have already been found, and they're still trying to decipher them and trying to take them apart to read them, and it's like the worst puzzle you've ever had because it's like fragments of pieces of paper, and they've got to build these puzzles. But I think they already have most of the books, or at least a bunch of the books, and I think there's going to be a lot more that still come out that they haven't even deciphered yet. And I think that we're going to start hearing more and more of the women that have come before and have delivered amazing messages. And I will tell you, having Mary in my household, she was so wise and so completely understood what her son was teaching, because she believed it and she lived it as well. And another thing I'm asked all the time is, was it a virgin birth? First of all, I wouldn't have been there, so I don't know. Second of all, I on a John Davis historical, like, search things out sort of way, I can't imagine it's true, considering that every time that a major culture has had somebody who's risen to such spiritual glory in their thing, they always claim it was a virgin birth. Horus in Egypt was a virgin birth. There's like virgin births all over because it's a clean birth. It's not dirty. It's like, that's the way they viewed it back then. It's just mythology. Let's see. Let me drop into the other side here. Yes, I've already answered the question about was he married. Joseph, will you share information on Joseph and Mary and how they were treated because of their relation to Joshua? It's really, really interesting. Joseph died young. He was well, I say died young. He was an old man when he met Mary, but he died before before the crucifixion. And that's why when Yeshua said, "Mother, there's your son, son, there's your mother," it wasn't like she was going off with Joseph, because he wasn't there; he was dead, and that's why she moved in with me instead of into the carpenter's house. And as far as Mary and how she was treated because of the relation to Jeshua, it's hard to describe this. Imagine a rock star, right? A rock star. Let's take Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley showed up, and his mom could have been right there. Nobody would have seen her because it wasn't important. It was even more that way back then because women were cast aside in that society. So she was not really that out in front and known. She was in the background the whole time as far as Jeshua's teachings. And then when the crucifixion and all that stuff happened, we left and we went back up to Galilee and the fishing area and Capernaum and we were up there, which is, if you look in the Bible, the first time Peter and John see Jeshua after his resurrection was on the shore of Galilee because they were fishing. We went back up there to fish and to make a living and regroup and do a lot of things with teaching, but also sharing the stories and spreading the word that way. It was a very, like I said, oral tradition in a big way. I think I have one more. That's I guess I kind of hit them all. And I answered that one. So yeah, those are all the questions that I have about the Marys and women in the Bible. I would like to say that it's one of the things that fascinates me about my pal Jeshua, right? At a time when he could have easily been the man lording it over everybody else around him, all the women around him, he did not. He loved his wife. He kissed on her. He hugged on her. He didn't mind PDAs at all. For those of you who don't know, that's public displays of affection. Right? He didn't mind that at all with Mary Magdalene. That was his wife, and that's the way it was. The other thing that fascinates me about Jeshua in that time was that he listened to women. He listened to what they had to say. And not only did he share his wisdom, but he got wisdom from them as well. Because he was listening to them from the experience of a segment of society that was repressed, held down, right? And yet they had this innate wisdom that was apparent and was very much a connection to source that a lot of testosterone-laden men can't have. And when I say that, can't have because of the fact that they're literally ruled by their gonads, as it were, and that was a very interesting thing in that time. Women had a huge role, and not just the role of taking care of the men. Women had a huge role of spiritual discourse, had a huge role of spreading the word, connecting with the families. We would go to a town, we would get into a village, we would go into someone's house, and the word was being spread. And of course, traditionally, the men would go sit, and it's kind of like in the 50s here, they'd go to the smoking room and they'd smoke and they'd talk, right? And the women would go hang out in the living room and they'd talk. And that's kind of how it was back then, only a little more, even more strict. But the messages were meant to be spread on both sides. Now, what I find fascinating about Mary, if any of you have ever heard my regression, there's so much in that regression that blows my mind. But at one point, I have an in-time conversation with Mary in the regression. And you can't hear her side of it. I'm relating what she's saying to the hypnotist. The big line was, and the main line that came through was, because you took care of me then, I'm taking care of you now. And I have a very big affinity for Mary and love her like a mother, because I was told to. But here, it was a different time, and many things weren't fair. But the one person who did treat them very fairly was Jeshua. He did see their value, and those writings will come out at some point. But you have to remember also, all of the writings, the entire Bible was a oral tradition long before it was written down. And so you've got the telephone game for oral tradition. You've got the translation game for written, going from Aramaic to Greek to Italian to English, to all these German, all these different languages. And then you have each person saying, well, I believe this means that. So the Bible that you're looking at today, that a lot of modern Christians say it's divinely guided to that interpretation, is so far off the path. And somebody asked me about the Lord's Prayer, which I'm gonna talk about the Lord's Prayer with its own video. But the Lord's Prayer took a seed of what was taught and surrounded it with patriarchal crap. And it sounds very harsh to say, but it's all about hierarchy and male dominance, and thank me for this, thank you for that. Our father instead of our mother. And it's very much a work of interpretive editing that has been rewritten around, and the seed is still in there. And I'm going to do a video on that prayer, because the video I put out earlier where I said that I don't pray to Jesus, that was the first video where we lost 3 subscribers. Because I don't pray to Jesus, they don't want to listen, and I'm okay with that. Don't get me wrong. If their spirituality says that's the way, that I'm wrong and that's offensive, then God bless them, as long as they're on their way, and as long as they're happy and joyful on their way. My response to one of the women was that literally that, spirituality is a personal journey. I'm sure you've all heard me say that many times. Personal journey. And if you have found true love, joy, contentment without judgment or fear in what you're already doing, that's wonderful, and I applaud you for that. But I also know thousands of years of being told this is what you're going to believe, being handed down from family to family for thousands of years. You're not going to change people's minds, because it's an indoctrination. It's in their soul and their psyche. And they're not willing to change, or not necessarily change, but be open to interpretations. And of course, most of them don't believe in reincarnation, and most of them don't believe in not only just past lives, but that someone is going to come along and that book is fallible, that book is flawed. And the things that I say, for those of you who watch these videos, the things that I say don't match what a lot of the Bible says. But if you dig into what's actually there and you hit the words and the phrases, I'm really hoping that I'm giving a real picture by using Bible texts and saying, look, this is what he's saying. This is what he's meaning. And I'm taking the that's not the word I'm looking for, the power. That's the wrong word I want, but it gives you the idea. I'm taking the power out of the words and making them practical and functional, because that's how Jeshua taught. It's how he wanted to live, even was to be practical, functional, joyful, minimal, and that's the teachings for exactly that: practical, functional, joyful, and minimal. And if you can take one lesson from any of these videos that I put out, that it's far more simple. It comes down to be love, or as we like to say here, live loving, right? So thank you guys for all your love and support. I put out that donation button earlier, and already have gotten 2 very generous donations, which I'm just overjoyed that I have made an impact enough for you to feel that it was of value. That's what I hope, is that these videos not only bring value but bring real change in your lives and the lives of your friends and family and the world in general. So I'm going to continue on. I have one video coming up very soon on relationships that is going to be very interesting, from a question. I'm going to save that for tomorrow probably. So you guys have a great day. By the way, it's 6:30 Monday night, and at 7:30, Tamara, Zoner, and I are going to be interviewing David Johnson and recording it for next Monday's Spirit Cafe. David Johnson, you probably know him. Kim has already interviewed him on her channel. So he'll be on Spirit Cafe with us next Monday, and we're so excited to have him on there. And so look for that. And then, I hope that we get to work with him some more, because that would be lovely. So have a great night, guys. It's, like I said, 6:30. So have a great night, and I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.